so much, Nicole. I'm super excited to jump in today, so let's get started. You heard a lot about Marva Brown and her amazing track record and the great things that she's done in the past. So, as we get into this this chat today, let's talk a little bit about your campaign because you're currently running. I see that you chose a bridge to justice as your campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose that or what inspired you to make that your message? Oh, you're muted. Sorry, Marva.
Hello.
There you are.
Thank you. We chose a bridge to justice for kind of a slogan to make us accessible to the public. I think that a lot of times when people think of the legal system, it's something that's foreign, something that they're not used to or believe that they have access or ability to be successful in. And as an attorney, I've worked with clients over the years and really just gave them a voice and a place of understanding and not only giving them knowledge, but also empowering them within the legal system. And that's the goal with our slogan, A Bridge to Justice, making the public think that and understand that they have a place in the legal system, no matter how they get there, whether it's voluntarily, involuntarily. There's many reasons why people get involved in the legal system. And so we're just saying it's accessible. And with Marva Brown as the candidate for a judge, we will make sure everyone has an equal access to justice.
That's a really good point. And actually, from the years I spent, I went to law school for a year and then I was a paralegal for a number of years in various aspects, criminal and family law and civil litigation, all kinds of stuff. And that's the one thing I feel like is very misunderstood for people that maybe have never had an experience within the criminal justice system or within the justice system at all, is that you can get there for a lot of different reasons, right? It doesn't have to be something that even you did or didn't do on your own behalf. So I think that's a really great platform to be on, not only to just spread that awareness, but to make people realize that like, there but for the grace of God goes you. It really is one of those things that anybody could be involved in at any time. I know that particularly for people outside the legal community, there is a misconception that judges don't have emotions, which is kind of wild since like they're people. But a cornerstone of your campaign is that you have that connection to your community. So obviously that brings that emotional element in there. So can we talk a little bit about, how we can really change this misconception or maybe a way to frame it or kind of explain it to people better? Because I feel like a lot of some people I think prefer the misconception, right? Because it means that you have a very impartial person presiding. But let's talk about that. What's your opinion on this?
Yes, well, we oftentimes hear that judges have to follow the law, be fair and impartial, and be unbiased. But it is a human system, and judges are human beings. And I unfortunately have seen on many occasions where biases and misconceptions and prejudices weigh in on the decisions that judges make. And so, as someone who prides herself on being a member of the community, giving a voice to the voiceless, and really empathizing with the circumstances of all people who are involved in the legal system, I believe that as a judge, I can take all of that and use what I've learned over the years, use my experiences over the years, the connections that I've made over the years to not only follow the law, be fair and impartial, but also be understanding and empathetic to the people that are in front of me. Because again, people are coming to court to be whole and to figure out what their needs are. And I believe that the legal system can be used to meet people's needs and to improve their situations. You come into the system maybe because your landlord is not keeping your apartment up to par. So you need to have renovations made and you've been withholding rent or something like that. What can the legal system do to improve your situation? And if you're a person who owns their own home and doesn't know the struggle of dealing with a landlord who may not live on site, who may not care as long as they're collecting the rent, right? These are real world circumstances that I, as a public defender, have dealt with on many occasions because I'm a legal aid attorney, I'm a public defender, but when someone has a criminal case, it intersects with all aspects of their lives. And so it might become a housing court issue. It might become a family court issue, an immigration issue. And so you have to have a total understanding of the person, the people, the litigants that are in front of you. And I think that is bringing the human element to the job as a judge. And it's so important to have judges on the bench that can relate and understand to the community in which they're serving.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And my apologies, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. It's not cutting in and out, it's just you're very low. So just FYI, I'm trying not to like speak too loudly over you. So one thing I do want to touch on, and so if you have other questions for Marva, we are going to try and hold time at the end of today's session for Q&A from the audience. So please, please, please feel free to throw any questions you have. I believe there's a chat box that you can throw them into. So please feel free to do that while we're having today's conversation. Marva, a little bit off script here, but in case anyone is joining us that is maybe not familiar with the legal system, could you give us a summary in like 2 to 3 sentences of actually what a judge does? Because I feel like a lot of people seem to either think that you bring all of your own opinions and you know what you say goes and you can do whatever you want, but then there's also people that think that all you get to do is go by the letter of the law and that's all you do and it's sort of very impartial. So could we talk a little bit about what that function actually looks like?
Right, and so judges need to have an understanding of the law and knowledge of the law, right? I've been practicing for 15 years, and so I've dealt with many cases in many different areas of law. So the wealth of knowledge that I've gained over the years is a foundation of what I'm bringing to the bench. But also, following the law is one thing. Judges also have discretion to use their real world life experiences in making those decisions. And so you might have the law, but then you're given the freedom to say, okay, I believe the range of offense could go from 5 years to 25 years. And it's using your understanding of life experience, people's needs, the resources that are available to the community, and deciding what is the most just decision in this case. And when you see certain values, certain abilities, certain resources that are out there, the decision can be a wide one depending on who is on the bench. Someone might say 5 years, another person might say 25 years. One judge might see a woman who's hit by a car, she might be a low-wage worker, and say, oh, her injury is only worth $10,000, where someone else could say $25,000. And that $15,000 difference could make a whole world of difference for someone who's the litigant and out of work and has needs and children and family to support with that income. And so again, it's taking your perspective and values into play when you're on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important thing to remember when you're, looking at candidates. You want somebody, generally speaking, who agrees with you, who, kind of has a lot of the same values and a lot of the same morals and goals that you have, but you also want somebody that has that judgment and that ability to be impartial, to look at the situation for what it is and consider all of those other facts, but still make a just decision, which is, very, very hard depending on the case. Okay, so going back to your campaign a little bit, you had wanted to get 3 times the number of signatures required, which was 1,350 instead of 450, as a margin of safety against challenges, which is a very hot topic right now. What challenges did you foresee that might stop you from getting a seat on the bench?
Well, I'm coming to the people of Municipal District 2 as a candidate for the people. I have not been politically involved. I am not a politician. And so I don't have the support and backing of the political party in Brooklyn to push me through. And so when I hit the streets with my volunteers to get signatures, I did it with the understanding that my challengers, who do have the support of the Democratic Club in Brooklyn, would be challenging me. And so actually, we didn't get 1,350 signatures, we got 1,825 signatures. And so when we submitted our signatures to the Board of Elections, we did it with the confidence that we had well over the minimum that was needed. And there was, in fact, a challenge that was submitted to my signatures, but they did not file the required specifications, because when you look at the number of signatures, there's no way statistically possible that I wouldn't have the minimum. And so going up against, the county Democratic Club is a big challenge. but I have the support of a lot of talented, intelligent people who have been helping me on my campaign because they believe in me as a candidate and they want to see me on the bench. And when we bring it to the public, I believe the public will also vote and see that I am the best candidate for the job.
Yeah, and that's so important, especially when you work within, our basically two-party system. If you don't have that backing, you don't get the money behind you to have advertisement, which gives you name recognition. Like, it's really difficult, but that's very impressive and really amazing, that you ran you want to run your campaign in a bulletproof way that also doesn't cater to politics. I feel like it's one of those important things that, yes, judges do have to campaign, but they're not politicians and they're not supposed to be politicians. So I feel like that's a really good, kind of way to work within the system and know what is required to get elected, but also do it in a way that works for you. It works for your own conscience and your own conscience, and kind of helps demonstrate what kind of person you are. Tick all the boxes, make sure you go the extra mile person.
Right. I always consider myself an attorney first, an advocate first, not a politician. And so what I've learned over the years is experience, the law, empathy for the public and the people. And when I'm running this campaign, it's me going to the people and saying, these are the qualities that would make me a good judge. And this is why you should vote for me. And it's not about politics. It's not about, who I've shaken hands with or who I've schmoozed with or who I paid to go to dinner with. It's, do the people see me as a qualified candidate? And the votes are what are going to reflect that.
So, all right. So I want to make sure we cover this question before we jump to any audience Q&A that there might be. But one of the stories that was shared previously that I absolutely loved, you had talked about your grandmother, who was a retired warden of the Westchester County Jail. And she used to share stories about the incarcerated women, and this motivated you to take action. She had said that maybe one day you could help them before they get to jail, which is like a really, it's kind of lens to see it through growing up, because I feel like a lot of the imagery that you see, especially like, I was a child of the 80s and 90s, a lot of it is like the black and white striped jumpsuits and bad people are in prison, and that's not always the case. And not just, just because you go to prison, A, doesn't make you a bad person, and B, it's not, that's it. You know what I mean? It's not lock people up and throw away the key. A lot of times it's you're in for a little while and then you need to get back into society. So I know that you had wanted to be a lawyer and a judge from the time you were 5, but can you speak to maybe how your sense of the law and your sense of like your purpose within that legal system maybe has changed as you've grown up, and if there were are there any role models that you had? Because I know that coming, as a woman who was interested in a legal career for a very long time, there were not a ton of female role models that I had to look up to. It just wasn't represented. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. And so my grandmother, rising through the ranks from a correction officer to captain to warden, was a big inspiration to me, because that is such a male-dominated field. But she really empowered herself and used it to empower the women around her. She raised up other corrections officers, some even who started as inmates, as juveniles, and then grew up to be corrections officers themselves and make a living for themselves in that male-dominated industry. So I'm very proud of her for doing that. In the legal system, I've had women mentors through Bed-Stuy Legal Services, through the court system, judges that I know that have imparted their knowledge on me. And not just judges who came from defense backgrounds, judges who were prosecutors as well, but they took their real world life experiences and their, what they learned in the streets of Brooklyn, and they took it with them on the bench so that they could be fair and impartial and listen and with a critical ear to what was being said by the district attorney's office, by the defense bar, and come up with a just decision. And so I've been really proud to have many female role models to look up to. And myself, I mentor law students. I have law student interns every semester and in the summer. And so I've really used that as an opportunity to share what I've learned and pass it along to the next generation of attorneys that are coming through the legal system. And it's just really a sense of pride for me to say, we're women. I think we're outnumber men at this point within the legal profession. And so the tides have changed in such an impactful way that makes me very proud to be a woman in this position.
That's so awesome. And I love to hear that you mentor up and coming attorneys, because it's such an important part of, your development as an attorney. And I feel like, especially when not a lot of people either want to or end up as a part of like the big law or like a larger firm. And that's where you do get that kind of like training of how to be a lawyer. And so I feel like it's really important to provide that to people that maybe are, like you said, like coming up through legal aid or something, where it's not, you don't get that kind of like built-in mentorship mentality. I think it's really amazing. I had a mentor in undergrad who was he was a former attorney general for the state of Indiana, and that man absolutely has shaped like who I am as a person, even though I didn't continue within the legal profession. And it's just, there's a lot of things that he taught me and he saw in me that I carry with me to today. So I'm sure you're having a very strong impact on the people that you're mentoring as well. How do you find time for things?
I was just going to say that sometimes a mentor sees things in you that you don't see in yourself. And it's that time and dedication that they put into your development, not only as a professional, but as a human being, that leads you to, flourishing and thriving in the career goals and personal achievements that you have. So I definitely have that understanding as well, because one of my younger colleagues, she wasn't happy in work. And I said, well, what do you want to do? What would make you happy? And it's really drawing on her and getting to know her to help her figure out where she's the happiest. And I understand completely. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about a little bit about your family. I know you have 3 beautiful children, one of whom is a daughter. Does she have the same aspirations that you had when you were a little girl, like being part of the legal system?
That's funny because no, she does not. She is her own little woman herself. She's 6 years old and she wants to be a singer and a mother. And that's just really crazy to me because when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer, I wanted to be a judge, and she's her own person. But I will say she knows what her mother does. She's come to my office, she's come to court with me, she's gone on investigations with me. So she really has an understanding of the legal system in a way that makes me proud, where even if she's making her own choices and decisions, and I'll support her in whatever she wants to do, she has an understanding of the work and the importance of what I'm doing. So, and she also helps with my campaign. She says, "Mommy, I'm getting you votes." And I say, "Thank you, dear."
That's so adorable. And that's so great. I mean, I know that especially in recent years, things like Take Your Daughter to Work Day have gotten pretty negative treatment for a lot of reasons, which are very well justified. But especially with something like, like we talked about earlier, like with something like the law, where if you don't have a personal reason to become involved with it, it's pretty easy to rely on kind of cable education, right? Everybody watches SVU or they watch, the various courtroom case, CSI was another big one. And they think they understand how the legal system works or how the justice system works, when really that's not the case at all. And because that's what, kind of the only information that you really necessarily might get, that's what forms a lot of the basis of people's opinions. We did actually have a really great question come in on the chat, so I want to make sure we get to that. But before we leave the subject of your daughter, what is one lesson that you have given her or that you would like to give her about some of the struggles you faced in your journey to get where you are? Because I feel like that, especially sometimes these lessons are way more applicable even if your goals are very different, like being a singer. So what would you say to her? What have you told her?
I tell her often that it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, it matters what you think about yourself, and to love yourself, have pride in yourself. And that's something that my mother, my grandmother passed on to me, and I pass it on to her, because self-love and confidence is what you need to be successful in no matter what aspect or professional career you have. And so that's what I tell my daughter. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You love yourself and know how great you are.
So incredibly true. It's very close to one of my kind of not mantras, but things I go back to when I'm not feeling that great about myself is you have to decide every day if you are going to believe what other people tell you about yourself or what other people say. And if you are going to believe that, it can be the world can be a much harder place than you really want to deal with. But if you don't believe that and you have that, you can kind of come back to what you think about yourself and value that, it definitely helps to make it easier to kind of drown out some of the other things that people say, because maybe they're true but unkind, but maybe they're not true. So I think that's a wonderful thing to teach her. So thank you for sharing that with us. We did have a question from the chat. Melissa had asked, how do we help change laws that we don't agree with as non-legal professionals? For example, I know that the voting restrictions laws in Georgia have been like pretty top in the news lately, at least. What are some steps that people can take if they have disagreements with some of the laws that are either in the works or have already on the books?
Right. Judges have to follow the law, but we have elected officials that write law, change law. So I would encourage all public citizens to participate in the political process. Get the people elected that are going to listen to you, believe your values, accept your values, and promote your values, right? If you are lobbying to elected officials, if enough people are behind a momentous program or new law, it can change. And that's by taking part in the political process. In New York State, we just had, the legalization of recreational marijuana. People have been pushing for that for years, but I know that it's because certain elected officials have been put into office by the public, the voting public, and they're listening to the needs of the community. So definitely take part in the political process.
Absolutely. Okay, last thing before we go, Monette had asked, how do you make your voice heard in a room full of judges that do not look like you? I feel like this could be a situation that might feel really, really intimidating. So how do you deal with a situation like that?
It's hard. And I think that the best thing is to put your best face forward, to show that you are prepared to make the strongest legal arguments, to show that you're taking the court process seriously and respectful to the court. Decorum plays a very important role in what happens in the courtroom. I know that judges like to see that people are respectful of the legal process. And so even if you're not in front of someone who doesn't look like you might be able to find a way to connect to them on a personal level and an intellectual level that they will then respect and give value to what you're saying. And so I think that just put your best face forward, put your best legal arguments forward, and stand your ground and in a respectful way.
So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I know we only have about 4 minutes left in the session and we do have to turn it back over to Nicole soon. But before we jump, can you share some information about your campaign where, especially if people are in your district and, you want to kind of help get the word out, where are some of the places they can connect with you or help support you?
Yes, so I'm running for Kings County Civil Court Judge. That's in Brooklyn, but it's specific to Municipal District 2, which includes the neighborhoods of North Crown Heights, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Clinton Hill, and Ocean Hill. I have a website for my campaign, marvaforjudge.com, MARVAFOR judge.com. We're also on Instagram, Marva, the number 4 Judge 2021, Marva for Judge 2021 on Instagram. And we have a campaign Facebook, Committee to Elect Marva Brown. So you can follow us on all of those social media sites and just hear what we're doing. We'll be making public appearances, some Zoom appearances, meet and greets, and we welcome the support of everyone in the community.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been really fun to get to chat with you. I just want to say again, thank you so much, because it's not just a half hour, right? There's prep, the time that goes into this, and so I just want to say thank you for taking time to share your experience as well as what you're up to with our community.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It went much faster than I thought.
It always does. Nicole, I'm going to hand it back over to you.